Hi, this is Aaron Myers, and welcome again to the Everyday Language Learner interview series. I'm excited to be joined today by Alan Park. Alan is fluent in Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. He's a graduate of Harvard Law School and Duke University, and is the creator of what has become recently the most recommended resource that I've been hearing about, and that is FluentU. So Alan, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for the generous introduction, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, I like to begin interviews just by asking, I'd love to ask, what has your language learning journey been like? Kind of, when did that first start for you, and what's it looked like through now a bunch of different languages as well?
Yeah, sure. So I started learning Chinese. I learned my first word of Chinese in college. Korean American, so I hadn't known any Chinese before then, and it was really hard. I walked into class. I had no idea what people were saying, but I stuck to it, and it turned out being one of the best things that I ever did. So I basically spent every summer in Asia during college. I did two Chinese summer programs, Princeton in Beijing, Duke in China, and then it wasn't on my plan at all, but I started picking up Japanese, and so at one point I was taking Chinese, Japanese, and then I went to Japan to learn Japanese there. And so I was about to graduate, and what I did was I just took a year off, and I basically spent the year in Asia. And I started it with a internship at a broadcasting station.
Okay.
And I followed that up with a semester at a Chinese university. And so then it was time to go back to reality, right? And so that's why I went to law school. And that was a bit of a detour, but it was fun. I met a lot of cool people, and I never stopped learning languages. Yeah. So while I was there, I was active with the East Asian, the people who are interested in East Asia and everything. Yeah. And so after that, I went into to management consulting, and for that, of course, I went to Asia. And while as a management consultant, I consulted for clients in Korea, Japan, and China, and that really taxed my language abilities because, as you can imagine, it's very important how you present yourself when you're talking to a senior client. And it was a trial by fire, and I think because of that, I was really able to get to the next level.
So you really were putting yourself in a situation where you really had to be able to communicate well.
Yes. I don't recommend it as a way to learn a language, but it's a lot of fun if you're up for it.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people generally we learn language to the level that we need to learn it. And so if you're stuck on a kind of a plateau, one of the things you should probably think about doing is doing something that requires more of you. And it sounds like you went straight to the top.
Exactly. It's like CrossFit, right?
Yeah.
If you work out, it's like CrossFit where basically if it doesn't kill you, then it'll get you to the next level, maybe 2 levels beyond.
Right on. So now you founded FluentU in 2011. What's kind of the backstory to that? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I think it was just the culmination of all of my experiences of learning. I always felt like I learned best with authentic content, stuff that's interesting, that's real. By authentic, I mean things that native speakers watch and enjoy, right? So it could be a TV show, a music video, a commercial, a movie. But at the same time that I felt that authentic content was the key, I felt like the experience wasn't ideal, right? It's still hard for anybody to learn just looking at the news, for example.
Yeah.
So I thought there had to be a better way, and that's how FluentU started.
All right. And so now FluentU, tell us a little bit kind of what's the platform look like when someone comes to FluentU? What are they getting?
So when you log into FluentU, you basically see a broad expanse of videos from the internet, from YouTube, the best videos that we could find. These videos range from things like music videos to speeches on TEDx to clips from music videos or dramas, and you just pick what you want to study. So you pick what you want to study, and then there's 2 real modes of learning on FluentU. The first mode is when you're just watching and enjoying the video, and what we provide is extra scaffolding, extra help and support that makes it possible for people to learn material that's beyond their reach.
Yeah.
So the problem that I referred to, about authentic content. It's just that it's too damn hard, right? You look at it. If you want to look up a word, first you have to make out what they're saying because there might not be a caption. If there's a line that you want to listen to, then you have to fast forward or rewind and hope that you got the right second. If you're off, then you have to listen to another part of the video, right?
Yeah.
So things like that, we solve all of that, right? So let's say, first of all, there's captions. There's captions, there's pinyin. Pinyin is the pronunciation, the way of expressing pronunciation in Chinese, right? So there's pinyin, Chinese, and English. So that alone helps a lot.
Yeah.
On top of that, let's say there is a word that you don't know. Then you just hover over the word. The video stops automatically.
Oh, wow.
The definition shows up automatically. If you want to learn more about the word, you just click on the word. And then there's a context-specific definition. So we don't populate it with some public dictionary that will give you junk, right? We wrote every single definition based on the specific video context.
Okay.
On top of that, we provide example sentences that were written for the learner, right? So these example sentences won't have you confused. It's not like we scrape the internet for some random example sentences.
Yeah.
And I think the kicker is that on top of that, you have video examples for that word, which are context specific.
Okay.
So if there's a word you don't know, then you just click and you have all of this information. So that's one part. That's the watching mode.
Yeah.
The other part, let me know if I'm going to.
No, that's good. I mean, and it's really already it's sounding just so robust and layered in such a good way to really help give people the context, the background information. It's exciting. Yeah, keep going with it.
That's half the site. The feedback that we were getting from people was that it's a great way to learn for intermediate learners because they kind of know their way around. And they have their own system. It's a great way to discover new vocabulary and enjoy content, right? But for beginners, what they need is more of a system where they don't have to think about how they're studying, and they just click their way to fluency, right?
Yeah.
So we made this new mode called Learn Mode, and what Learn Mode is let's say you have a subtitled database of the web's best videos, right? How would you use that to teach somebody? So we break it up into two parts, right? One part is when you're reviewing the word for the first time. And when you're reviewing the word for the first time, you see the in-context definition, and you see a video clip which contains words that you only know.
Uh-huh.
So let's say there's an unknown word. Let's say you know 10 words, and you're learning an 11th word. Then when we teach you that 11th word, we're going to draw from our entire video database and pick one clip that includes those 10 words.
Wow.
So make sure that it's comprehensible, right? It's true personalization, right? So that's part one of Learn Mode. And part two of Learn Mode is it's basically multiple choice questions and translation questions. And of course, we keep track of everything, and we provide the feedback that you need to make sure that you're learning.
Wow. So
basically, sorry, I'll just finish with one point now. Basically, we have learners who come in, they don't know a word of Chinese, and they're translating the entire video by the end. We've had that quite often now.
Cool. So you've created a system where if it's keeping track of everything I've already learned, and then it's giving me, I'm able to get new videos that have included everything I'm learning plus what I've already learned plus what I'm currently learning.
That's right. Everything's personal. So let's say you're learning, let's say you have a class. Let's say you have 3 students, and they all have different levels of Chinese, but they're learning from the same material.
Yeah.
Then the content that they're shown will all be different.
Wow.
It could be the same words, but the content is different.
Sure. That's great. Wow, that's really personalized. And
yes.
I noticed, when I went to the site, there's a number of ways to differentiate between choosing courses, but also then, there's newbie, beginning, intermediate, so you can kind of figure out in that sense, too, and that was great. Do you have, what were the other things at the top? Dex and vocab. What was that?
So decks it goes back to the issue of guidance and structure. For some people, they have a way that they're studying already. Mm-hmm. For example, you might have a Chinese teacher and you have a textbook that you're using. Then perhaps you'd think that FluentU is kind of hard to fit in because it's based on authentic content and commercials and music videos. How are you going to fit those into your study schedule? Basically, decks come at it from the opposite direction. So you're able to identify a type of word that you're looking for. So we have decks on things like slang. Um, we have decks from popular textbooks like Integrated Chinese.
Okay.
We have clothing decks. We have business vocabulary decks. We have all kinds of decks. And on top of that, you can make your own decks. So you can import your own words. So if you have a list of 10 words that you're learning with your tutor, then you can just import them and start learning them in our Learn mode with the context-specific video clips.
Right. So if someone were just moved to China and they just signed up for a language school class, they could come home with that textbook the first day and look ahead and see, well, these are the 15 words that I'm going to get into tomorrow. Input them in, and now they're going to get authentic material that's going to include those, just like
That's
that.
it.
Wow.
That's exactly it.
That's cool, man.
Thank you.
Do you guys have, now, like, to me, this sounds really cool, and I think it's a really great system. Do you have plans of expanding, or what I think would be cool would be kind of like franchising into other languages? Because the platform's there.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the name, of course, it's FluentU and not Fluent Chinese or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's something that we have our eye on. I think it's a system that's shown that it works for Chinese. So why not do it for other languages as well?
Yeah, I mean, and with the YouTube and the web, it's like, what language couldn't you, with a couple of the right people in place, expand into? Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah. So the next question I had just kind of comes at it more from the principles and philosophies behind what you're doing, and we've probably talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to hear kind of what are the underlying principles, philosophies behind what you have going on there at FluentU.
Yeah, I love this question, by the way. I have no formal foreign language training, so I preface this with that. But this is based on my own, like, on the streets kind of training, right? I learned my Chinese on the basketball courts of Hangzhou and the boardrooms of East Asia, right? So this is just like just my own raw experience. But I think that authentic content is really important. I think authentic content is kind of like, the analogy I use is that it's like organic food, right? It's good for you. When you start consuming it, it just produces so many benefits. It's interesting. It's real. When you talk to people, I think you'll be able to connect with them better.
Yeah.
I think the sooner that somebody can start actually enjoying authentic content, the less likely they are to give up as well.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, our system is about authentic content, and that's why we have all of those resources. I think that principle is the reason why we have it. It's not a gimmick that we emphasize the music videos or commercials. So that's number one. What was number two? Number two is comprehensible input, right? So comprehensible input. If you don't, I saw your interview with Steve Krashen, by the way, Stephen Krashen, and I love that interview. I didn't know that theory existed when I started thinking like this. But basically, if you understand everything that you're learning, then that's not useful because you're not improving.
Right.
You're not learning anything new. If you understand nothing, then you don't understand anything, so you can't improve. So there's an optimal ratio. Maybe it's like 80% to 90% or something like that.
Yeah.
But our system selects clips and videos based on the amount of comprehensible input, right? So if there's a video that that is not within your reach, then we will make sure that it's not recommended.
Sure.
Right. So that's number two. It's comprehensible input.
Yeah.
Number three is personalization. So we're talking about real personalization. I think that a lot of language learning sites, they kind of do personalization lip service.
Yeah.
I don't want to point out any specific names, but personalization is hard.
Yeah.
I think with the technology until now, that's what's been possible. But when they say personalization, they usually mean interests, right? So it's kind of like, I'm a beginner and I'm interested in business vocabulary, and then that's it. That's the personalization.
Yeah.
But I think, with the technology that we have available today, we can really go much deeper than that. We can go to the vocabulary word level, and not only that, but the definition level, right?
Yeah.
Because there might be a word that this definition, but not the other definition. And there was one more. I guess the last one is gamification. I mean, we know that language learning is hard, um, and you need every little trick that you can get
Right.
to learn. But gamification, I don't see it as a gimmick. I used to think it was a gimmick, to be honest. Right? If you give somebody points, it'll make them happy and they'll want to learn more. But I think that's not it. I think actually gamification is the flip side of good pedagogy, right? Because what is good pedagogy? Good pedagogy means that you have a good sense of what you have to do. You have a good sense of the progress that you're making. It's clear when you've done a good job, and it's clear when you've done a bad job.
Yeah.
And that's basically what gamification is. So with our site, every word that you encounter, it's clear what your progress is with that word, and we keep track of everything.
Yeah.
So that's number 4.
Cool. That's really great. Yeah, that was very, very good. No, you talked about the technology, and so the internet is really dramatically changing the landscape of learning languages. As someone who's really at the forefront of that, of innovation and kind of stepping into new ideas, what are some of the exciting new possibilities that you are seeing, and then as well that you think, man, this is the possibility that I'm not seeing yet, but that I wish we could be seeing, that need to be developed? Maybe even
I love that
beyond
question too.
FluentU. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that question. I think we're at a very interesting stage right now because you have, I think a lot of language learning online right now is kind of like offline moving online. So it's not really fully taking advantage of online learning, right? You might have things where content is basically moved online and is accessible everywhere, but I don't think that's fully taking advantage of it. You might have teachers that you can talk to online, which is great, right? But
Yeah.
I still think that's kind of like offline learning.
Right.
At the same time that we have that, we have devices coming out like Google Glass. I think Microsoft had some kind of simultaneous translation demo. So at the same time, we have this other opposite end where it seems like language learning is going to become useless, right? Because we're going to be replaced by these robots who can like simultaneously translate for us. But I think that that's still a long time, from now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing FluentU. So the Google Glass thing, the simultaneous translation thing, is a long time from now. But before then, I think there's going to be a very interesting period of time where technology can really facilitate language learning on a personalized basis.
Yeah.
And nobody has really done that yet.
Yeah.
So I'm saying basically the situation, for example, with language learners and distance learning, like the Skype schools, that kind of model, I feel like there's a lot of potential innovation there for a situation where it's not quite Google Glass, and it's not like the simultaneous translation, but there's a lot of support that makes it the ultimate language learning tool, right?
Yeah.
So imagine you're talking with somebody, everything that you say is recorded and inside your Google Glass. Any mistakes that you make are instantaneously told to you, recorded, and implemented into your SRS. I think all of that will be possible in maybe 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
Well, and that's just, I mean, it's just a crazy time. I think of like even, 15 years ago, just on the content side, if you wanted to learn, if you're in the States and wanted to learn anything outside of Spanish, French, and Russian, perhaps, you didn't have any options except to find a class because the resources just weren't there, just content-wise. And I like what you're talking about. It's like you're taking it even a step further of just like, what are these possibilities for personalization, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that sometimes, well, it's where we're at, but I look at classrooms, for example, and I see people continuing to kind of function in this paradigm that's existed for the last 100 years. And it's like, we've got this new thing going on here. How can we take advantage of this? How can we, like for this, Stephen Krashen talks about finding content that's compelling, that like kids are excited about. And it's like what you're doing at FluentU. Everybody can find content that they're excited about, that's right in their sweet spot and in their niche of interest. And, and it's just like it, as classroom teachers, if we're just sticking with the textbook and not giving, our kids the opportunity to explore their hobbies and passions in the language that they're learning, we're just really missing out on such a spectacular opportunity.
I agree with you 100%. There are things that computers are good at and things that they're bad at. I think they're bad at motivating people. Um, they're bad at translating, things like that. But what they are good at is they're good at delivering the right content at the right time,
Yeah.
right? They're good at personalizing. A teacher could never keep track of 100 students, what they like, what they dislike, what their vocabulary level is. But that is what they can have the computer do,
Right.
and the computer can do
Right.
the harder stuff, the human stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really cool about what you're doing with FluentU because, I mean, the internet is this vast ocean of resources, and even for a teacher, it's like, how do they go out and personalize it for each of their students? Well, if there's a FluentU in the language that they're trying to teach, well, now that system can do it for them, and that's what I'm excited to see. Like, I would love to see you guys just start expanding into hundreds of languages. Because
Thank you. Yeah,
I mean,
we're thinking about it right now, so
yeah,
don't worry about that.
Yeah, that will
And
be
you're
cool.
helping by having me for this interview.
Yeah, I mean, what a great resource for teachers. I mean, I just think, man, that is just like spot on what teachers could use. You know, I think Link to some extent does that with reading. There's a program called Link, and it does that to some extent. But you know, with video and stuff, especially for the younger generation, I mean, that's just, I think, who couldn't get excited about it? So,
Right.
that's
Right.
really
And of
great.
course, video is huge, right? Because it provides context.
Yeah.
It's basically it's able to increase that percentage of comprehensible input, even if your understanding of the language is zero, right?
Yeah, yeah, the images and everything. There's more there, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this is great. I'd love to kind of end with this question. The other question I like to end with is kind of, and this would be outside of FluentU, but what is one
Yes.
piece of advice you would give to kind of a beginning language learner, a 26-year-old in the States who's thinking, man, I would love to start learning French or Chinese or Spanish. What would be your piece of advice to them?
I think language learning is very hard, but very simple, actually. If you create the conditions where you will learn, I think you have to learn. It's kind of like working out. If you work out and you eat healthy and you sleep right, you will become fit. There's like no way around it, right? It will happen.
Right. Yeah.
With language learning, I think for me there are two steps, right? One is you have to change your mindset, I think, so that you're receptive, so that your measure of success is different. If your measure of success is how perfect was I today, then I think that is not a formula for success. But if your measure of success is how many mistakes did I correct today, then I think you're on your way. So that's step one. And step two is just create an environment where you get constant feedback and you're able to make a lot of mistakes. And if you correct enough mistakes, then after a while, I think you'll end up sounding fluent.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Oh, and there's a few other sites that I'd heavily recommend for that content that you can digest and make mistakes on. One is Hacking Chinese by Ule Linge, and his stuff is great because I think that he really gets his stuff will nourish your language learning mind. I think there's one post that he wrote called "Slow Then Fast." Big then small, and his point is that you shouldn't rush into trying to appear fluent.
Yeah.
If you get a strong foundation, then it'll set you up for success. And his stuff is fantastic. Yo-Yo Chinese, I think Yang Yang has done a great job. Her stuff is perfect for somebody who's just starting out with Chinese. I think she breaks things down so that they're understandable, comprehensible. And the last resource is Skritter.
Okay,
I think Skritter is fantastic because it's the best way, I think, to learn how to write Chinese characters, and they provide the kind of feedback that you need to know whether you're wrong, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
That's cool. I've heard from a lot of people about Skritter as well, just that it's been a good resource. And that slow then fast, big then small post is one that I've read, and it's just, you're right, it's a great way to.
Yeah, it was like
frame.
I wish I'd written that. It was like yeah, it's just you want to take credit for that post almost, right?
Yeah.
It's such a great post. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, hey man, thanks so much. It's so great to just learn more about FluentU, to hear from you. to just kind of tap into your knowledge. And I just wish you guys the best of luck as you continue to move forward, because I think what you're doing is just really fantastic. And I'm excited to tell more people about it and get people started with it. So
Thank you for the kind words, Aaron. It wouldn't be possible with our awesome team, and thank you for having us. I'm a huge fan of your blog and wish you the best as well.
cool. Thanks so much, Alan.
Take care.